We wanted to be a band, not just have a band name. If I go back and think about the genesis of all of this and into this spot we're in now, it's probably a 2-year process. I'd been off for a while from the road, went through some stuff in my life that made me think I needed to be closer to home. So I stayed home for years, 3-4 years, and I just got the itch again to think that maybe I wanted to go out and play again. I was missing the road. I wasn't 100% sure what form that I wanted it to take. I just knew that I felt like I needed to write songs. And so I turned back the clock all the way to the time that when I'd first moved to Nashville. I was writing certain styles because I'd been influenced for so long by certain types of music, certain bands, the Eagles, Skynyrd, Jackson Browne for me, Bob Seger, basically a lot of stuff in the 70s that I heard on vinyl in my house growing up. As I was thinking about that influence from my parents and my love for country, Waylon Willie, the Outlaw generation, and just different writers in town that I've known and kind of grown to love personally, I found myself kind of wanting to take all of that stuff and just put it in a big gumbo bowl and see what happened. And so I started writing with all of that in mind. But more than anything, I was just trying to get stuff out, because the last 4 or 5 years had been difficult at times, or made me be pensive and think a lot about my life musically and what I'd seen and what I'd gone through. I drove out to the desert and just stopped in little motels, stayed up all night and rode, and the further I got out west, the more I ended up sleeping outside instead of finding a place to stay. All of those songs started pretty much west of Texas. Good players hang out together. They like to play with other good players. So if you find one, there's a real good chance they're kind of like snakes. You end up in a den of good musicians, right? So we thought, well, let's try to put this together like they used to, posses back in the Old West, where they were looking for hired guns and gunslingers to run with their gang.
He was pretty clear just to say, man, that, he wanted to get back to his roots. He remembers growing up hearing those vinyls play of the Eagles and Lynyrd Skynyrd and the Allman Brothers, and it just in a season where he was out kind of searching himself and searching through some things in life out in the desert. From there, man, we just tried to find the guys that had that vibe, just the gunslingers and the good old boys that could pull this thing off and do it right, man, that had a similar vision and a similar taste in music.
I literally told Clint, because Clint said, I'm not sure it's even worth our time to make the call. This would be our guy if he would say yes, but he's probably not going to say yes. And so when we called Bart, he was way more open than I thought he would be.
He called me out of the blue one day and said, I got this project that looks like it's going to start, and I think you'd be perfect for it. And then it was great from there on out. Meeting the guys, listening to the music, it fit me perfectly. I didn't know how everything was going to shake out, so I was like, man, I should keep somebody in my back pocket. There's nobody that I trust in the world, really, for that kind of stuff. And I thought of Scotty, and I was like, man, he would be perfect. They said, well, can you imagine, looking across the stage and him being the other guy? And I was like, shoot, yeah, man, we'd freaking tear it up.
I was still doing my band thing. We were playing shows, and I had missed a call from a Nashville number. And then about 20 minutes later, I missed a call from another Nashville number. And one message was from Brian and one was from Clint, both asking me if I would be interested in joining a band in Nashville. They asked where my head was musically and kind of told me where their heads and hearts were. We all kind of talked on the phone and got to a point where, okay, it's time to actually get together and make some music. We kind of sat down for dinner and we were talking about potentially what we were going to do with band members. Clint told me, he said, right now you and Bart are the guys in the band, so we need your help finding some other guys. Do you know a bass player? And immediately I said yes.
About a year or two ago, I was playing with a band, and we were actually opening up for the Scotty Bratcher band, who he noticed me in that band, and after our performance, he got my number. And then I didn't hear from him again for a while, and one day I got a call from Brian and Clint saying that Scotty Bratcher recommended me for this band. And I was ecstatic. At the time, I wasn't working a whole lot. I just moved to town, Nashville, about 2 years ago. I was working with some bands, but I wasn't really steady with anybody. We were just sitting down, having a drink, my first meeting with Brian and Clint, and I was showing them some videos of us playing the blues in Europe. We went over there to play some shows, and like, who's that keyboard player? He's, oh, this is one of my best friends, Well, is he available? I said, well, I'll ask. He's in a band right now, so I hit him up. And
I was working a restaurant job, and I was touring like most weekends, and Kieran had talked about getting a phone call from Brian and Clint, and I guess he had a meeting with them and showed them a video that I was in of us playing together in college. And they asked, like, who's that keyboard player? We're looking for a keyboard player. So Kieran gave them my information. They gave me a call. We set up a meeting, listened to their music. And I really enjoyed the sound and fell in love with it right away.
And so Clint knew Bart, who knew Scotty, who knew Kieran, who knew Andy. And the technical producer on the album, Brian Fullen, knew Matt.
My buddy Brian Fullen hit me up. I met him at Live Oak on Demumbrian Street after seeing him play, and I was like, hey man, I really like your style, I like your playing, and I would love to grab coffee and talk drums sometime. And he was like, yeah man, let's do it. So we grabbed coffee, we kind of got to chatting about music and life, and a few months later he had called me, or I think it was Clint that called me, saying that Brian Fullen had thrown my name in the mix. And so I got to meet Brian and Clint, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I knew that I was a little bit different than most of the guys in the band as far as my influences. So I was a little nervous going into it, and found that quickly that we all had similar backgrounds and similar styles when it comes down to it.
I mean, once we launched into the first couple songs, it was like, whoa, like this band we really have something here. Just being on stage with Bart and Scotty is like, it's electric.
We all kind of plugged up and started just messing around, and we played 2 or 3 different grooves, and they were slamming, and then it was great.
I kind of had in my head what I knew it was going to sound like, and 2 or 3 songs into the first rehearsal, I think we all kind of had that weight lifted off our shoulders, and we all kind of went, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be great.
And so I remember walking in to SIR where we were rehearsing that day, and we were in room 2, and they just started playing because they're players. And so I was excited about the fact that they had already started interacting, and again, they'd played together before, some of those guys, and so it made sense, but they could have sat around, waited for somebody to tell them to get up and play, but that's not who they are. They're players. And already they were working and acting like a band. The reason that we're the Desert City Ramblers is because we're full of ramblers, and a lot of the songs are written not too far outside of Desert City. Doing gigs is part of our identity. If you listen to the songs, a lot of them are about the road and the experiences that I or we collectively have had out on the road. So playing gigs is the destination of this band. But I believe these guys are good enough that they belong anywhere. So if we end up in small bars having a good time, and with everybody grooving through a night, then we're in the right place. But if we're at a big festival or fair, or we end up on a stage somewhere that's got a TV camera in front of it, we feel like we belong. Everybody here has done this before. They've done it for a living for a good while now, and we're not arrogant, but we're not afraid of the big stage. This music will go where it's supposed to, but anywhere that is, we'll feel right at home.